Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. Hoping all of y'all can hear me. I'm just going to do a check. Let me do a quick check. Mic check, mic check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Just kidding. Just kidding, y'all. Just kidding. All right. All right. All right, y'all. So let's jump right into it. I've been away for a minute. I'm glad to be back. It has been busy. 2 board meetings that I've been juggling, president of the PTA, juggling, kids, coaching, all things that actually still fuel my energy and make me just feel so wonderful, like I'm making an impact and giving back. And so I've been away live for this 30-day series. And so today, um, I wanted to talk about a topic that's near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, especially recently and most recent in our environment, and that's this topic of transparency. And if nobody knows what you're working on in your organization, it might as well not even exist. And I'm seeing this a lot across different organizations and even the organizations that I'm affiliated with, that there isn't a lot of sharing of information all the time. And so if your work is not transparent, it really does not exist in so many ways. But then the opposite of that is that duplication of work, or not the opposite, but knowing that duplication of work is not necessarily a people problem. It's something in your system, and it's something with how you've set up your system for feedback and for transparency so that people understand and know exactly how you are operating, how you are um, just how you are navigating your organization. Sorry, y'all. I'm just trying to make sure that I am live and that it is clear, um, that you can hear me. Okay. So the reality is transparency isn't a nice to have. It is the backbone of every system. It's the way we get feedback. It's the way that we share information. It's the way that we get shit done. And so it is the backbone of every system. And what I notice is that people are hungry for it. People want transparency because they are tired of wasting time. They are tired of doing the same work twice. They are tired of not knowing if what they're working on even matters, right? Because if there's no transparency, there's no recognition in many cases because people don't know what you're doing. And what people want is for their work to be seen. They want their work to be amplified. They actually want to make an impact, like I shared at the beginning. And it's interesting. I don't want to like go off topic, but this is in alignment with the topic. Is that I was recording a podcast episode that will be published in the future with my coach, and we were saying like, if we're not talking about our work, it is kind of like null and void. And, we have to do better with like putting ourselves out there and just talking about it. Like, if there's any challenge every single day, challenge yourself to tell somebody what you worked on, right? Because that's what transparency is. And transparency is a game changer individually, for your team, for your organization, systemically. It is a game changer because in any system, whether it's work, family, friendships, church, whatever, if you don't make the invisible visible, which you're going to hear me say a lot in this live, you don't just create confusion. Okay. You actually create chaos. There becomes a chaotic environment. You are not necessarily in alignment with what you're supposed to be doing. And you'll also get the duplication of handoffs of work, the unclear handoffs. You're going to get some people who have hurt feelings because they're going to be like, like, this is not okay. They're going to feel hurt about it. And you're going to get a lot of wasted time. And then you're going to see systems that seem to be crawling and like, oh, barely making it through. And you'll see that instead of the flow that is required in the system. Can you imagine if water got backed up? What does that do? I'm sure you've had a toilet get backed up, a sink get backed up, some piping get backed up after like a major rain. It doesn't flow and it clogs up the entire system. And so that's what we mean about transparency. And so today, on day 4 of my systems that make teams work, we're going to talk about the power of working in public and what happens, how things fall out when transparency is missing. Okay. So, y'all, let's tell the truth. We, most of us, we have a messed up relationship with transparency. And we say we want it. We say we want transparency, but when it's time to be transparent, we are not necessarily showing up. We are not necessarily showing up. And why? Why is this? And I've been studying teams and I've been looking and I just been really listening. And I just want to say I do have my fan running. So if it is not, I hope it's not a disturbance because y'all, it's been hot in San Francisco and raining at the same time. Feeling like Florida weather, that Indian weather that they call it in October. And it just so happens to be Libra season. My birthday is coming up, y'all. I'm excited. But anyway, so my fan is running. Hopefully it's not a distraction. But the reason why we have such a messed up relationship with transparency is because information is power. And people rather hoard the information because if you are the only one with the information, you get to be the go-to person. Everybody likes their ego kind of stroked. If you can be the go-to person, if you could be the gatekeeper, you can be the expert. That is like some saucy stuff right there because now you're able to say, I'm the expert. People have to come to me and you feel needed. There's some ego, there's some things like that, which is, a whole other topic to talk about. But that's why, that's one of the reasons why, right? And then in leaders, for the leaders that are listening, a lot of you are scared to share too much too soon, right? You think if I say this now, it'll leak, it'll get twisted, I'll lose control. Things will be taken out of context. And so you're just going to hold back. So you won't share, right? Especially when there's these big, impactful kind of like decisions made systemically, and we don't start to share and tell the folks what's happening. Things get all twisted. Things can get twisted. Things can get messed up, right? Because honestly, sharing is not easier. You don't you don't have to worry about leaks. You don't have to worry about being misunderstood or someone else getting the credit for your idea if you don't share, right? But the problem is that silence doesn't protect you. Keeping things, hoarding things doesn't protect you. It actually destroys trust. And when trust is gone, the whole system starts to erode. The whole system starts to crumble. The whole system starts to literally break down. I want you to think about COVID. In the beginning, the government knew more, some governments knew more than they were saying. And so the decisions that needed to be made were delayed, they were downplayed, and they thought that keeping people in the dark would keep all of us calm, right? I remember when March 2022, I was actually at a leadership retreat with CTI, with the Coactive Training. Shout out to them. They have like been the foundation of all of my work. And I was at a leadership retreat. It's a 5-6 day retreat away from home. And I remember seeing like news feeds, like at the end of our day or whatever, or in between our day, where it was saying that there was a pandemic happening. They're starting to go into shutdown. There's starting to be things that, were really just impacting our ability to make decisions. And so I was like, well, how did this come? And then after we started getting more and more news, we started to find out like there was something that happened in December. There was flu. And I remember the December right before December or November 2019. I remember even my daughter was in a Safeway and she went by herself because, she could walk to Safeway. She was old enough. And I remember her like almost passing out or passing out in Safeway and somebody calling me who she had a phone. And so I was thinking like, oh, maybe that was part of the COVID thing. Like she got sick because it said that she was sick and she had the flu or whatever. And so, like, the government thought that by keeping the information about COVID away from us, that it would keep us safe. We wouldn't react. We wouldn't get into a frenzy. But then when things shut down, I remember my husband called me like, the lines are long at Safeway. Everything is going off the shelf. Like people are buying all this stuff. Like, I don't know. Like it was a ton of things happen, right? Because actually, not being transparent, not sharing things with us did not keep us safe. It did not make us feel better. And this is an example that when leaders aren't transparent, people start filling in the blanks with their own stories. So we made so many stories about COVID. Honestly, we did. We did. And whenever there's a rumor, let me tell you, that spreads faster than a virus can. Okay. Because now people are scared, fear is taking over, and our trust in leadership definitely left. We definitely had mistrust in leadership. And that's the cost when you are not transparent. It doesn't create safety, it creates chaos. Now everybody is in a frenzy. And once you lose trust, my friend, good luck on getting it back. You're probably not going to get it back. So, what happens when you don't work in public? I want to share that with you, but I'm going to pour some tea. I have this tea glass. It's so cute. Can you see it? Can you see it? Can you see it? My little teacup. My tea has been sitting, simmering, and I put it in there. I love it. Sometimes I have tea in the morning. Sometimes I have coffee, mostly coffee. This morning I'm having a glass of tea. That's what I'm feeling like. So that's what I'm going to do. And I had already put a little bit of honey in my glass before I pour it in. Mm-mm. All right. That face just reminded me of my daughter, which by the way, my daughter is doing very well at college and she just transferred her job that she had out there. And so she's doing really well. Can't wait to see her soon. Anyway, so what happens when you don't work in public? So when you are not transparent, it doesn't just hide information. It shapes the behavior. It shapes the behavior of the system. And usually it doesn't shape it in the most positive way that you're thinking it. Because again, like I said, like we think we're keeping people safe by not sharing, but we're actually just causing more of a problem where people feel the mistrust and they're creating their own stories. And so I want to share 6 different ways that transparency actually erodes or corrupts or breaks down a system. So here we go. So the first thing is bottlenecks. So with bottlenecks, when there is no transparency, there is bottlenecks because everything literally starts to come to a halt. And that's because only one person has the info. On day 1 of this series, I talked about how an example was a leader who is the decision maker on everything. And so, although they are so far away from the work, they're making decisions and the momentum could happen. And then when it gets to this decision maker, things start to stop. And so it becomes a bottleneck. Other ways that bottlenecks can pop up is if, the work isn't somewhere and people don't have the information that they need. And so that's the second thing was information hoarding. And so people keep things secret because they again, it's that ego thing where, I'm going to stay powerful instead of sharing my power. And power is not a bad thing. I want us to note that power is not a bad thing. When we are power with others versus power over others. And Let's be with others by sharing information so they are equipped and they have the knowledge they need to move forward. And when we are hoarding information, it creates the bottlenecks that we see. Because say that person is out sick, right? What we have to wait now, right? Because they're the only one. They're hoarding information. An example is like when people hoard budget numbers so that nobody else can make decisions. That can be something that impacts us. Another thing is knowledge, where our knowledge is kept in silos, so only one team has the information, not the entire, organization or group, right? And so when we keep the knowledge of like lessons that happen, think of research. Like, can you imagine if one or a group of people had information about a new research study for our health, let's say health research study, and they didn't share? Can you imagine what that would look like and how that would be an impact, a domino effect of the entire system because people don't have that information? And so when we lock out other people from having that information instead of like sharing across the whole system, there can be duplication of work. There could be the bottlenecks. There's the information hoarding. Like you see the pattern here. All these things kind of get stuck and locked up. The toilet gets clogged. And the last thing is perfection culture. Um, Work only gets shared when it's done, which kills the innovation. I love the agile way of performing work where things are iterative, where things keep going, where we experiment and learn, we experiment and learn. So retrospectives, things like that. I love that type of culture. And so when there is no transparency, that culture is not happening, actually. But let me give you the opposite of this. What actually makes a team or an organization or a group of people more transparent? What happens when you see that? The first thing is flow. Yeah, that toilet is going to flush every single time, y'all. It's going to go, it's going to do what it's supposed to do, it's going to keep on going. And that's what we want. That's what we want to see with information. That's what I mean by transparency. We want to see that happening every single time. Then there's shared power. There are no gatekeepers. Let's not gatekeep information. Everyone can act and make decisions based on the same data. And you just never know. Some people have more visibility into other things or have some expertise or education or fresh eyes. Like we need the fresh eyes. And so having shared power helps more with our innovation, with creativity, with moving things forward. And so when you are not transparent, you don't get that. But when you are, there is some shared power. There's also some collective leadership. I love to say collective leadership or collective growing together because when we have the insights across the team, things start compounding instead of stalling. So we start to see a collective like gathering towards one thing where everybody's being a full participant. And we want to see that with transparent when we in transparent systems. And then the last thing is iteration. I just touched on this. Work is shared early, feedback lands fast, results get better. We start to see a lot more iteration that's happening in our environments. And so that is what happens when we see transparency happening. Okay, just need to take a sip. All right, so let's talk about the five invisible workflows because we could talk all day about how we can be transparent, but we also need to notice that what are the things that are operating that are invisible workflows that we need to be looking and making sure because the stuff that really runs a system is not on the org chart. It's not on the org chart, y'all. It's not on the org chart, right? It's invisible and it really drives everything in our systems. And these are the things that we need to be transparent about all the time. Okay. The first thing are decisions. What are the decisions that need to be made in the organization? Who or what group of people make those decisions? How long does it take? What stalls it? So when day one, if you go back, I talked about and I kind of mapped out for you all sharing, like, this is what you need, like mapping out the decision making process and seeing, like, we need to notice if we're not aware, we can't change things. And so being able to say, this is what stalled that decision, and this is where we need to make some adjustments. This is where we need to iterate, right? And so if you don't have a clear, transparent decision making system, you're going to see your organization fall. Okay? You're going to see that. The second thing is communication. So people think like, "Oh, okay, I'm communicating, I'm sharing." I always say communicate, over communicate, and you're going to have to repeat yourself like a broken record all the time, especially as a leader. And so we want to continue to communicate, 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 because that is important for us. It's important for information. It's important to know what to do next, right? Imagine if a fire was happening and we didn't communicate and we don't know who's going to tell us what to do. Right, that wouldn't be good, right? So communication is all about how the information moves and who gets left out. We want to know who's getting left out and who needs that information in order to take action, in order to act. So decisions is the first thing, communication. These are two invisible workflows that need to be made visible in order for transparency to work. Number 3, task. How do ideas actually move from concept to action? I want to know the tasks that are happening and who's doing it, because I don't want to waste my time, y'all, duplicating efforts. Ooh, it's nothing worse like that. It makes my skin crawl when somebody is already doing something that I'm also doing, and I'm thinking, "Oh, I spent all this time and I have children at home, I have a family, and I could have went out the other night, but I was at home working overtime for." Y'all, let's talk about the task, right? So this could look like having smart sheets, Airtable, Trello, Asana. Let's get some tool that will help you be able to know what tasks are out there. These tools also help with decision making. Just saying, because you know who's the owner of that task, right? And so let's look at the task. Let's figure out what to do. The fourth thing is feedback loops. These are the signals that tell people what's working or not. And so we always got to have, without a feedback system, we don't know how to react or be proactive without a feedback system. We want to know what's working, what's not working. And feedback is not just about telling your opinions. It's not just about sharing with someone like, this is what it is. Feedback is like, where are things getting stalled? What is happening? How is the system set up so that we have a way to learn? This is for y'all who say you're a learning organization or you're a learning driven team. Let's put some feedback loops in there. Let's make sure we have a system for that. That requires your transparency. And then the last thing, and I would assume that a lot of people know this one, but they don't know this one, which is the culture. The culture is so invisible sometimes, and culture will literally like take over anything. And so we need to know, what are the unwritten rules about how we do things here? How we do things here. Again, if you're not aware, you can't make a change. If you're not aware, you cannot change. If you're not aware, you can't do something new. If you're not aware that your toilet is backed up, you're going to keep going on that, sitting on that toilet. And eventually it's going to come over. Now you got a mess. Now you have a mess. So if you miss any of these decisions, communication, tasks, feedback loops, or culture, within culture, there's a little bit of like our norms. Okay, so those are interchangeable. But if you miss any of these, you are blind to the way your system works. And that is when your system is going to break down. That is when they are. So, what's the solution for this? How do we make work visible as a system? The fix is not complicated at all. Y'all might be mad at me that y'all done listen for all this time, and this is the answer I'm going to give you. You ready? You ready? Let me drink my tea because y'all ready? This is the solution. Stop hiding the work. Stop hiding the work. Make it visible. Put it exactly where people can see it, where people can talk about it, where people can take action on it. Put it, make it visible, not just one time, but as a system. Create a system. So let's go deeper on this. I'm not going to leave you there. This is what this looks like. You have a shared source of truth. It's not buried in emails or in one person's head. I was talking to one of the staff leads the other day. We had a meeting for the PTA that I'm on, and she mentioned, she was like, "Yeah, like we did this event for one of the months, and I got sick, and I realized nobody else knows how to do it because it's all in my head." Do you know what happened with that event? I think it got pulled off, but it didn't get pulled off in the way that it could have been. People were scrambling at the last minute. It took people away from other tasks that they had to do. And it just created this full roadblock because there was no shared source of truth. There wasn't a Google document that everybody was working off of. There wasn't a Trello board or something like that that everybody was working off of. And so things were just complicated and all over the place, right? And so, when you set up, I set up, kind of a fairly new team recently, and I took a Google Doc and Google Sheets rather, and we have different tabs of the calendar, the yearly calendar, the links that we send for people to sign up for events, the meeting notes, the things that need to be, people always need visibility to. Because, y'all, I'm going to tell you guys, I am the queen of systems that make it easy for people to find the information that they need so they do not have to blow up my phone, my Slack, my, text message, anything, my email. I'm the queen. I'm like, if you are up at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning and you need some information, I want to put it where you can get it because I'm asleep. I never want to be a bottleneck for people. And that's what you have to think as a leader. Like, what is the information that my team needs to know at all times? Because they may be the person working at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. They might. They might. Again, a whole other topic. I'm not going to go there, but I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave that there because you shouldn't be working that late. But anyway, then another thing you can do is share work in progress, not waiting for perfect. So you can start to say, hey, I'm working on this thing. So as an example, a lot of things that I've been working on recently is my content, how I show up on social media, how I show up in email, how I, just show up, right? And one of those things is like, I'm not waiting for perfect. I'm not waiting for the perfect live, the perfect, outline. I'm not waiting for the perfect way that I communicate. My coach said to me, the best way that you can get better at something is by doing it. Because practice makes perfect. Practice makes perfect. Perfect is relative, you know, you know, it's relative. My husband, he always says to the kids that he coaches, so he's an athletic coach, he coaches football, he coaches basketball. He's tapped his toe into baseball as well. And he tells the kids all the time, repetition is the father of learning. He tells our kids, repetition is the father of learning. So I'm just going to keep repeating and I'm going to share where I'm not perfect. But you know what? It gives me the information that I need to do it better the next time, which is feedback. When you bake that into your system, into your operating rhythm, and it's not just an afterthought, you're constantly going back and saying, how are we doing? This helps everything. Again, another example is I like to have the practice of always, always, always after every event that is hosted to do a retrospective, right? A retrospective is 3 columns is in the agile world. We're looking at what's working, what's not working, what to do in the future that we can change. How do we shift? And so that helps where we want to build a culture of transparency because now we have the feedback that we need in order to make new decisions in the future. It helps not to have a lot of bumps in the road, right? And so doing this having feedback is so important. And the way you get feedback is you share it with others because others may have some expertise that you don't have, but they can absolutely help you. They can absolutely help you. And so that's going to help you in the future, right? So as I'm working on content and I'm working on showing up live and I'm working up on topics and things like that, y'all, tell me what topics you want to hear. Tell me what you want to learn about. Tell me, what are some ideas of how I can be more impactful and bring you more and not be a gatekeeper. How can I do that? Share with me, right? I'm not waiting for perfect. I'm diving in. I jumped into the water, swimming. Y'all, I really can't swim, but I'm swimming and I'm learning, right? That's what it's all about. And then lastly, a culture. We have to build a culture that's transparent. It's the rule, it's not the exception. Absolutely. This is a hard word, but I'm going to say it because I don't have another word in my head right now. But demand transparency from everyone in your organization. Demand that. Demand it. Transparent systems help everyone grow. It builds the collective leadership that we're all craving for. If you do any of these shifts, you won't have the bottlenecks. You won't have the silos. You are going to be able to make so much progress that is going to make you just chef's kiss, right? Clock that T. You go clock it. Like my daughter would say, clock it. So here's the takeaway I want you to sit with today. Transparency is not about oversharing. It's about trust. It's about working in public. It's about sharing information. It's about making the invisible visible. Because when you make things visible, you give people the context. You give them agency. You give them autonomy. You give them a chance to move faster, to move smarter, and to move collectively, to move together. And if you are ready to stop losing your time, your energy, and people, because we lose people also when there are no processes or systems in place, let's talk. Okay, let's talk. I do have a few strategy sessions and spots open this month. You can look at my link in my bio and get that link. And we'll map out your workflows. We'll pinpoint the transparency leaks, and we're going to design a system that actually works, right? Because the bottom line is that if you want teams that flow, that grow, and that deliver, that flow, that grow, that deliver, you have got to make the invisible visible. You've got to make the invisible visible. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining. Share your thoughts in the chat. Reach out to me. Click the link in my bio. Go see me. I am streaming live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram. I'm here. So, yes, I would love to hear from you. Let me know how you're doing in your work, in your team as a leader. I would love to help you. All right. Have a good Thursday, y'all. Talk to you soon. Bye.